Good evening, everyone. I'm informed the live stream has now started, so if you're involved in any confidential conversations, I suggest you stop them now. Welcome to the meeting of the Joint Transportation Board. There is no fire alarm planned for this evening, and should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. Two of the closest exits are through the glass door over there, or the wooden door at the back. In the event of an evacuation, please muster outside Café des Amis. Members of the public are welcome to record the meeting using their own non-disruptive methods, whatever they think is suitable. The meeting is being minuted, recorded and audio live streamed by the Council's website, and I believe it actually is, despite the recent problems. The Westgate Gardens on the riverside are locked at sunset, so that was some time ago. So members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit. If you did get in through the Westgate Gardens, investigations will be continued after the meeting. The final note on this is that we do not have the voting system operational this evening due to the recent cyber attack. So the mics are working and the meeting, as you can tell, and the meeting is being audio streamed, but voting will be done by roll call. So when it comes time to a vote, your names will be called and yes or no will suffice, or aye or nay if you want to be old school about it. So thank you. So first of all, move on to the first item. Any apologies for absence?
Yes, we do. We have quite a few, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor David Thomas, Councillor Keith Bothwell, Councillor Naomi Smith, and from Mr Dan Watkins, Mr Neil Baker and Mr Alan Marsh.
Lovely stuff. And substitutions?
Yeah, we have Councillor Rachel Carnack for Councillor David Thomas and Councillor Claire Turnbull for Councillor Keith Bothwell.
Welcome. And do we have any declarations of interest?
None received in advance, Chair.
Lovely stuff.
Any more from the floor?
Are there any declarations of interest from the floor? No?
No.
I'll speak now or forever hold your peace. And in that case, we shall move on to the next item, which is public participation. I understand we don't have any registered public participation. Sorry, sir, that's not gone through. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So none registered.
So the first one, and perhaps the reason for so many absences this evening, is the petition on the road layout at the new Herne Bay Plaza. We have received the petition. Do we need to sort of read it out or anything? What will happen with this, by the way, for those who are interested, which I suspect is quite a few of you, is that I believe the lady who submitted the petition to us didn't want to speak this evening. She was invited to speak this evening and would like to speak at a future meeting, perhaps the next one. Yeah. But because they, I believe, have a public meeting this evening, she thought it would be a bad idea to be here speaking about it when she's probably at the meeting about the petition. So shall we just note that that's been received and held over for the future? Lovely. Yep. So, item number 6. This is rattling through, isn't it? TRO closure of Pound Lane. So, we are to consider the report of the Service Director, Place and Head of Transport Environment, and Ruth Gowdy, the Transportation Team Leader, is here this evening to read us the report. Thank you, Ruth.
I'm not going to read all of it. For those who don't know me, I'm Ruth Gowdy. I think there's some new councillors here who I've not met before. And most of you, I'm sorry that I'm sitting behind the pillar for you. That wasn't on purpose. I'm the transportation team leader. Pound Lane is the road that's almost opposite that door of the Guildhall. It's very narrow. It's got exceedingly narrow footways, which are completely unsuitable for prams and wheelchairs. It's part of the national cycle route, and it is used by a large number of pedestrians, and it has a large number of pedestrians crossing it from St Dunstan Street to St Peter Street on the way to the High Street. When we did a traffic count, it was several years ago, there were 900 pedestrians in the morning peak hour that were making that manoeuvre. Vehicles that are coming through the Westgate Towers to turn left into Pound Lane have no sight of those pedestrians that are crossing. There are a variety of reasons put forward for wanting it to be closed. We've done 2 rounds of consultation. In the first round, which was online and open to everybody to respond to, the responses were 50% in favour and something like 41% not in favour. And then we did the formal consultation for the actual traffic regulation order and got a greater degree of support in favour from residents and the Residents' Association and the ward councillors. Andrea, can you switch to the drawing now? Just if people are not fully aware, that's the length of Pound Lane that we'd be looking at to close. There's a at the I don't know if the cursor works. Yes, it does. Right. This area here, it could be used by vehicles to turn if any do get too far. But I think what's important to point out is that this length of road's been closed for the past several months. And so motorists are used to not being able to use it. Prior to that, it was part of a through route for vehicles, despite the fact it's got an access-only traffic order on it. Vehicles were using it as a through route. So that has obviously removed that part of the through route. That's more or less it.
So I would like to propose from the chair, if at all possible, that the Joint Transportation Board recommends to the KCC Cabinet member the permanent closure of Pound Lane to motorised traffic near to the junction with St Peter's Street. Do I have a seconder for that? Oh, I think it was Mel first. Councillor Dawkins, sorry. Oh, you here as Mrs Dawkins? Sorry, Miss Dawkins. I'm being fed duff information.
Don't worry, I've been getting everyone's names wrong this evening. Apologies.
Thank you, whoever you may be. I'd like to open that up to debate if anybody would like to talk about it or discuss any of the issues there. I think from my perspective, I think it's a good idea, but by all means, Mel.
I don't really need to say anything in opposition, but just some comments really, and thank you, Ruth, for your introduction. Yeah, just supportive of the scheme, as is the councillor and the cabinet member for Heritage as well. As you know, you've read the paper. Just a couple of queries. I guess, you know, we found out that there's going to be more cars on North Lane, quite a lot going in the south-east direction or something, by 973 per day. So will there be any sort of improvements to North Lane? Because obviously more cars will create possibly more damage to the roads in the future. Will we be able to monitor the situation as well in terms of there's been some concern that the Marlow, when the theatre shuts, there's a lot of traffic on the causeway. So, you know, it'd be good to monitor that situation. And if there's a problem, if it's going to be bollards that we can remove, maybe there could be an arrangement with the theatre that on big shows they can be removed just for exit times. I don't know, I don't know if that would be a possibility in the future. I just wanted a bit of clarification on the turning, you know, where the bollards will start. Is it directly? It's kind of, I can't really see from the picture. You see a red line, but there isn't going to be any opportunity to turn around in that area at all. Because that was one of the concerns, I think, from Councillor Heselton, that people still might try to turn left and then realise they can't go and then turn round. Because then there's going to be more of a false sense of security for pedestrians, so they're really going to think they can just walk across the road, and if suddenly a car's trying to turn round, that's not going to be. So just, I couldn't work out from that one. I think that's everything, but yeah, I'm supportive of the scheme and just generally keep an eye on it as well in terms of the traffic on the causeway.
So the fact that it's already been closed for several months is a that's almost like a trial period, even though that's a temporary traffic order, and that is to pedestrians and cyclists as well, but which is very, very unusual. But it has been closed to traffic for all of that time, and 900 vehicles a day extra on North Lane sounds like a lot, but I'm estimating that North Lane probably carries 12 to 15,000 vehicles a day, so an extra 900 is not a significant increase, and again it's already carrying that traffic. I spoke about the vehicles turning that are coming from the north. You're right, I didn't speak about if they're trying to turn left from the Westgate Towers. The closure would be far enough forward that they would be able to see before they actually make that turn, the same as it is at the moment, that vehicles are not making that turn and then having to reverse back out, and they're not having to do a little three-point turn in the Westgate Towers, because it would be the same as that. The Marlow traffic, last time I went to the Marlow, we actually got stuck trying to get out of the car park rather than getting out of the causeway. And that was something that we have the ability to do something about that with AMPR, that we can we can use the car park as almost as a gate line if we should need to. If there's that volume of traffic, then we can play with the AMPR and the car parks to ensure that the traffic is getting out in a seamless manner. The closure would be by removable bollards, so there's always that possibility if it's for emergency vehicles, but also for if in conversation with the Marlow we felt that was needed, then that would be something that we'd be able to look at as well.
Something else? So, quickly.
Thank you. Just one last question, if that's okay. Thanks for the answers there. One was just about, so from the Pound Lane, then you can get, at the moment, you can't get to Westgate Hall Road. I'm trying to remember the road. Do you know where the Curzon is? Yeah, I was just wondering what the possibility is having a footpath from the end of that road up to the Pound Lane, so that, you know, that can be used.
There is a footpath there now through the new housing
Is there?
development.
I
Yeah,
won't be there.
that's part of
Okay.
the new housing development. It's not the biggest footpath in the world, but it is there.
Okay, brilliant. That's perfect. Thank you.
I have Councillor Buckman and then Councillor Carnack.
Yeah, hi there. Regarding once it's closed, it was about the amount of cyclists or e-bikes that could be shooting out of the end and weaving in and out of all the people walking around. Have you got? Is there room for like a marked lane for sort of cyclists? Because I guess this bit won't be part of the PSPO thing that goes for delivery drivers through the high street, because it might have come in too late for that. So is there going to be any sort of safety measures put into place for that? And then when they get into the square, well, not the square, to Westgate Towers, will there be any sort of demarcation there for sort of people visually impaired, like the raised paving tiles, to know that there could be sort of cyclists coming from the sides, and then to monitor where the causeway is across in there with the islands, because if there is quite a lot of traffic coming out of there, you know, and you might have the family with you, because if you come out of the theatre or wherever, just to monitor there, that make sure that is kept safe. Thanks.
Part of your question, I think, is straying into the designs for the Westgate Square that is part of LUF, and I'm not on that team, so I don't know the detail of how that's going to be. All I would say is Pound Lane has been part of National Cycle Route 1 for the past 20 or more years, and even before the road was closed, pedestrians were still walking in the road because there's no alternative, and cyclists were using the road, and it sort of was operating as a shared space before that anyway. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on it. We always have a period of monitoring once schemes go in, and we'll keep an eye on that, all of that area. But the change in traffic patterns is already being rehearsed now. So it's only really about reintroducing cyclists to that area. and they are familiar with having used it already. And there is actually, this goes back to me not knowing what the Luff proposals are, or not knowing the detail of them, but there's a cycle crossing on the little island that's just out there to help cyclists cross St Peter Street in 2 halves and then coming back as well. So the cyclists are kind of guided to the right place to cross already.
So yeah, I suppose it was just a general point because obviously bikes are just getting quicker. So it's not just push bikes, are they? I mean, the e-bikes are pretty quick and they're very quiet. So if you can't see very well, you can't, or hear very well, you know, it causes even more problems.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we keep an eye on it.
Thank you. Councillor Carnac, then Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, on the bid views which you assess as neutral, have you gone back to the Marlow or any of these other businesses and consulted further with them? I just express concern because when you look at the basically sort of 50-50 outcome, the very few numbers of respondents, the fact that business are neutral if negative, but councillors are in favour, it's very similar to what we're seeing in Herne Bay at the moment. And I'd hate for this to go through and we all think it's wonderful and then for a similar outcome. But when you read it on paper, it reads as it did with the scheme in Herne Bay. So I would say that there needs to be more consultation and discussion, particularly with those members of BID that were negative on this, to assess what their problems were and to see if those can be overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that having had a look at the consultation responses myself, that they're, you know, neutral or negative as an overall one from business in terms of something like this, I think is broadly better than we were probably expecting in the first instance. And in terms of the number of problems it does away with, rather than the number of problems, it is already a very dangerous place for pedestrians and cyclists. And this closure, I think the point is to, as Ruth has been saying, is to kind of formalise an arrangement that's been in place for a long time and make it safer. And to the point that was made earlier on as well, as the development of that area under the Luff project takes through, then hopefully that will address many of the sort of safety issues and concerns that we have. But I do take that point under advisement. We are constantly speaking to the BID and businesses in the area, and all of those. And obviously some of the ones in the immediate area are very, very keen on the idea. But yes, we'll obviously keep talking to local businesses to make sure that the changes are brought in sympathetically. Thank you. I had Claire, Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think it's a great idea. Obviously, prioritising pedestrians and cyclists is fantastic, and it's hard to see how anyone would not think it was a good spot for closure because it, you know, having used it. It's been closed for quite a long time, and I'm just wondering, could it be open to pedestrians and cyclists, or a way through be made available to cyclists and pedestrians in the short term? Because
I don't think so. I'm sorry. That I had a long argument with the roadworks coordinator from Kent about whether there was any possibility of allowing pedestrians and cyclists through there when they put the closure in. But the level of works that they're doing for that development just mean that there's no safe place for pedestrians and cyclists to go. So no, we don't think so. What we want to do is, if we are successful tonight in agreeing this, we will follow on directly from the end of that construction programme, so it will never open to traffic again. If that's helpful.
You've no idea of timescales at the moment.
Apparently, it's going to be nearly another year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Apparently.
Thank you. Mr. Atkinson. There are no cards this evening. So.
Okay, right. It's a bit easier. It's a good scheme. There's no reason why the cars shouldn't be removed. But you're not simply making it safer for pedestrians and cyclists. What you're doing is establishing a new hierarchy. And as you remove the cars and allow more cycles, you actually make it more dangerous for the pedestrians. As you come down through Westgate Towers, you're almost blind you're almost invisible to the cyclists rather, coming down Pound Lane. If there's no cars, they're not going to be particularly careful, I suspect. They'll be the new kings of the road. So is it possible, as it enters St. Peter's Street, I think it's St. Peter's Street, to somehow have the cyclists actually stop? Because, as you said yourself, 900 pedestrians or something is an awful lot of pedestrians awaiting an accident. And it's just that they are now, again, the bottom of the heap. The last few months may well to you people have been an experiment removing the cars, but it's not going to be fair if you then reintroduce the cyclists and the pedestrians together and just let them get on with it. So is it possible to improve, as you put in the bollards, for example, has been mentioned in the plans, is it possible to improve it so that it is actually pedestrian safe rather than just cyclist safe?
I think there's lots of locations where pedestrians and cyclists do safely share the same space. And I think that the High Street is one of those examples. But I'm not fully getting that pedestrians are going to be in jeopardy if cycles are allowed to share the space with them, because that is what was happening before that, but they were also sharing it with cars. So what we're suggesting with this is that we remove the vehicles and remove the motor vehicles and leave the pedestrians and cyclists to work together, as they do on other cycle routes where pedestrians share the same space as cyclists.
So as we re-engineer that part of the city, where we could have put in, for example, some pedestrian safety measures, we won't do that. We'll just let them get on with it. That's what you've said. Really, it should be possible to engineer somehow so that when you come out from under the Westgate Towers, where you're essentially invisible from Pound Lane, as you step out that way, there's some safety measure for the pedestrians who are going to be using that road space. I mean, if that could be incorporated, that'd be an asset.
So it's definitely part of the conversations about some of the redesign that's going on in that area. And obviously that'll be a while off yet. But in the short term, as I understand it, there will still be, it will clearly be a road crossing. So for pedestrians to stop and see that something's going to happen, it's not going to be a kind of seamless thing. And as Ruth said, this has been part of the National Cycle Network for 20 odd years. I've cycled through there and walked through there a lot. And it is a space where what causes the most issues there, in my experience, is people accidentally turning left, trying to turn right. In terms of cyclists speeding through there, I can assure you that the last thing you want to do is enter that stream of traffic on a bike at any level of speed. So cyclists do come to a natural halt, and if they're entering Pound Lane from St. Peter's Street, they've already just crossed 2 lanes of traffic as well. So it is a slow-moving area for cyclists and a shared space, which cyclists, you can't legislate for people who are going to, not pay due care and attention when they're going around, but in terms of the markings as it is with the bollards being there, it won't be a seamless thing for pedestrians to simply step out into, and it won't be a high-speed route for cyclists to whiz past because they'll be coming to a natural stop at the end. But I do take the point, and I think that we can keep an eye on how those design elements work as the whole area is redeveloped. There's lots in terms of shared space and cycle and walking infrastructure that will be going into that as well. So I think it's something that we can keep an eye on and make sure it's fed in. Which one are you tonight? You're Mr. Brady, I believe, this evening.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, because it was mentioned earlier that paragraph 2.7 bid views, it says bid views members were mixed and representations have been recorded as neutral. But it was mentioned a couple of times that neutral but negative, but that documentation doesn't state this. It says neutral, and there are some businesses support, and there's a reason. Others, including the Marlow Theatre, were concerned. So to me, that means they're neutral with positive and negative. So I just wanted to point a clarification just from this documentation.
I think we can take it as neutral. Any further comments, or shall we try the whole roll call thing? Lovely. I just to sum up that although we'd recommend that the order goes in, the actual road won't be open up for some time in the future as well. And I think that we can keep a watching brief on how it is opened up and what it looks like, and note the concerns on pedestrian safety. But again, referring to the report from the officer, it has been a cycle route for a very long time. And the general theory here is what we're doing is removing what was quite a dangerous turning for cars, and hopefully that should improve the overall safety of the area. And I do know from some of the anecdotal feedback I've had through listening to this, very, very popular with some of the businesses in that area as well. So without further ado, shall we put it to the vote?
Are we all clear what we're voting for? A vote for is for.
Okay. A vote for is that the Joint Transportation Board recommends to the KCC Cabinet member the permanent closure of Pound Lane to motorised traffic near to the junction with St Peter's Street.
Okay. Right. Councillor Bland.
For.
Thank you. Mr Brady.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Carnack.
Abstain.
Lovely. Mr Dance.
Abstain.
Ms Dawkins.
For, please.
Mr Marsh isn't here. Councillor Moses.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ricketts. No, you don't.
I'll abstain anyway.
Mr Soul.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stockley. Thank you. Mr Rob Thomas. Thank you. Councillor Turnbull.
For.
Thank you. That's everybody, isn't it? I just want to check. Right. And that is carried with 8 votes for, none against, and 4 abstentions.
Excellent. And we shall now move on to item number 7, another non-controversial item, the Sturry Bypass. And we have a verbal update from the KCC's Highway and Transportation Officer. If I pass over to Hazel.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My update comes from Richard Shelton, who is the lead for the major projects team for KCC. It's a verbal update. He was asked whether to provide a report to the board, but unfortunately he wasn't able to provide a report for this time, and has provided just a few bullet point updates with a view to pulling together a formal report for the next JTB. So at the moment, Sturry Road, Link Road update is both a compulsory purchase order and side road orders were published in November 2023. The objection period has now officially closed with a handful of objections received. KCC are going through the process of dealing with the objections, seeking to remove holding objections where possible. A decision on the order is expected by the end of 2024. We are waiting to see if the Secretary of State is going to require a public inquiry. Negotiations for voluntary land acquisitions is running in parallel with that. A design and build contract has been awarded to Volker Fitzpatrick. The programme is for a 12-month period for the detailed design, and with earliest date for commencement of April 2025. There are ongoing environmental surveys being undertaken to ensure that we meet the statutory obligations and to enable environmental mitigation strategies to be prepared as part of the detailed design process. There are a number of pre-commencement planning conditions, including environmental mitigation strategies, that need to be submitted to the planning authority before works can. Archaeological investigations were undertaken during summer of 2023. We are awaiting the issue of the investigation report. The project is predominantly funded by developer contributions from the following developments: Broad Oak, currently being built out and contributions are being paid in line with the Section 106 agreement. Sturry, the 106 agreement has been signed and the developer is still to close out some of the planning conditions. North Hursden, currently in planning phase, a decision is expecting in spring 2024. Section 106 to be signed prior to notification of planning consent. Heads of terms for the Section 106 agreement have been agreed, confirming the need to provide the contributions to the Sturry Link Road. Popes Lane, Sturry, additional contributions are being sought to close a potential funding gap. A planning application has been submitted for the site and the 106 agreement has been negotiated. Indexation with the 106 agreement has been largely protected, protected the project from increased costs. KCC to undertake full funding review once the detailed designs have been completed, but before committing to the construction phase. Confirmation that the Sturry development is progressing will also be required. If you have any questions, I'm quite happy to take them back to Richard and he can come back to you on email.
Thank you, Hazel. Just in terms of this, the point on the agenda tonight is to note the verbal report, and we can do that by general assent. The officer in question, who's obviously provided those bullet points, and we can have those circulated around. As you can hear by those, it's unlikely that there will be a great deal of change before the next meeting, and the next meeting is likely to be very busy with parking review and various other things. So I would suggest that we might ask the officer to come and give a full report to the June meeting. That is the next one after parking, is it?
I think so.
Yes, the next one after the one after the next anyway. If there are any strong feelings that we would like to hear from the officer on Sturry at the next meeting, I can't imagine, given some of the timescales mentioned in those notes, that there will be any change between now and the March meeting. So I think June should give enough time for a full update from the officer where we can then perhaps have a bit more of a wide-ranging discussion on the issue. But if there are any questions on the specifics this evening, I'm happy to take them now, or we can take them via email and feedback to the officer separately on the basis that they will be coming with a report in June. So are we happy to take that report on general assent? I'm seeing vigorous nodding for the listeners at home, all of you. Lovely. Thank you, Hazel. Item number 8, active travel update report. And we have Jamie Watson here this evening to give us an update. He's Head of Service Transportation for Kent County Council. And unfortunately, Seb is unwell this evening, I understand, so you're going solo this evening. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. This report updates members on the position of the active travel projects within the Borough of Canterbury and requests that the board recommends the Crab and Winkle development scheme, on completion of the detailed design, continues with a bid for construction funding at the appropriate time. The report details tranches 2, 3 and 4 schemes that were successfully bid for via Active Travel England funding from paragraphs 2 to paragraphs 4. The request for the recommendation to progress only the Crab and Winkle to construction bid at this stage is based on the fact that it already has planning consent and the designs are nearing completion. It is not likely that a further tranche 5 funding round will be available until March 2025. I or Ruth will be happy to answer any questions. The tranche 4 scheme plans are a little difficult to read in this report, so Ruth is able to pull those up should there be further questions on the tranche 4 schemes particularly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. For those of you, I assume we're all fairly familiar with these, that there are several schemes, including the Hearn schemes as well, but the extension to the Crab and Winkle is the one that is fully planned out and ready to rock and roll. So that's the one that we would focus on with this tranche of funding now. So that's why we're only focusing on looking at that one, I think, is I've just basically said what Jamie said again there. Are there any sort of points of clarification or questions on that one? In which case, before we open it up to debate, then the Joint Transportation Board recommends to the KCC Cabinet member that a bid for funding be made to Active Travel England for the construction of the Crab and Winkle Extension Cycle Route Scheme, and if the bid is successful, construction should begin as soon as practicable thereafter. I think I need a seconder for that. Well, I'll take a seconder from Mr. Thomas. Well, we can have a debate afterwards.
No? Right.
Can I get a seconder? Lovely. Councillor Turnbull, thank you. Are there any comments? Oh, I see there are. Ms Dawkins.
Thank you. So I got that all wrong. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, Jamie. And I just wanted to, obviously, you know what I'm going to talk about. But I appreciate in the report that reference has been made to Longport. Is that better? Right. Okay. Right. Yeah, so thank you for the report and thank you for coming tonight, Jamie. Right. And I just wanted to thank whoever wrote the report that they made reference to Longport and some of the pitfalls, obstacles, ups and downs that came out of that consultation and sort of the facts and how it all came about. So I appreciate that, and I hope that those, and it appears that those have been recognised. I wouldn't say they were mistakes, but you know, sort of things that have happened and that we can learn from. So I appreciate that. And as you know, I've had quite a lot of dealings with the community and the residents about certain things, and we've talked quite a lot. And your colleague Zeb Birds came to meet me on site on Friday, and we walked around, and hopefully we'll have an update on that. Just sort of the RSA, the road safety audit, it still hasn't happened, so I wondered if you had any sort of indication when that might be happening. And just as we go forward with the Crab and Winkle and all the other schemes, I think what's really important to recognise is that we keep that community engagement going from the very, very beginning, from the birth to the end. When they go off to university or whatever, you know, we need to continue to keep that engagement going all the way along and working alongside our communities. Also, there was the issue of heritage, and it is very relevant to Canterbury, the town. There's also going to be lots of other places within Kent that have this heritage element. So it'd be good to, I think I did speak with Cabinet Member Neil Baker about a possibility of a heritage kind of toolkit or some sort of mechanism that allows KCC and the Active Travel team to work with the council and their heritage team, so those sort of issues are worked collaboratively from the very beginning, and there might be sort of elements that kind of just sort of, you know, slot into place as you go along. So some sort of heritage toolkit. So I wondered if you had any sort of update on that. Besides that, supportive of the Crab and Winkle scheme and looking forward to using it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a date for the road safety audit stage 3, which generally is as soon as we finish construction. And I know you've been asking for quite a while when that's going to take place. So I will chase it up with Seb, who's organising that. The community engagement, there's definitely some lessons to be learnt from the scheme, as well as the Herne Bay scheme that's going on at the moment. We've got to understand when we go out to the community, and we think we've got support, that we've done all we can at the early stages. So that's something that we're looking into and see if there's any further improvements we can undertake. And it's absolutely a fair comment about the heritage element. We do need to make sure that all officers are aware of the heritage element, and we ask the right questions, and we understand their elements that they're trying to help us with on the scheme. So again, we've got a bit of work to do on that, but thank you for those questions.
Thank you. Yes, Ms Dawkins.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, thank you for your answers on that, and I look forward to talking more when the road safety audit has been done to talk about those alterations that we might be able to put in place. It's not going to go away. Also, just one other last thing. Sorry if that's okay. Yeah, it's about. I think there's just a sort of a bit of an education piece, I guess, about. I mean, you've talked about it, Ruth, about this use of shared space with cycles and pedestrians, which is, you know, familiar to me, but I know that's a lot of members of our community that don't quite. It's kind of, say with the Longport, because that's the one I know, there are sort of areas where suddenly the cycle lane goes and then there's no indication what happens next, and you would say, or your officer would say, oh, that's because it's a shared space now. But I think for some people that's not a given. It's not. I think if you lived in Holland, for example, that would just they understand that. That's just part of their culture. But I think there's still some bits that just need a bit more explaining about where the shade spaces are and how they all work and stuff like that.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas. And then
Thank you very much, and congratulations on chairing a JTB meeting. I think it's probably been a few years since I was in a meeting chaired by a Lib Dem councillor, probably going back to Alex Perkins from overview and scrutiny a number of years ago. But that wasn't what I was indicating I wanted to speak about. It was just about active travel. I think it's quite pertinent given the petition that we've had this evening, obviously the other meeting that's going on, and it's around the local plan process, actually. With the local plan process, obviously walking and cycling routes are particularly important for that future development plan, and clearly with the with that local plan, there's not always enough funding for all of the infrastructure to deliver the local plan. So what I'm curious to ask about is if we could just hear about the thinking as to when these schemes come forward, are the local plan schemes discounted or why? I mean, I don't know every local plan walking and cycling route, but clearly things like Herne Bay Plaza wasn't part of that plan, and I don't want to dwell on that too much, but I think it's important when funding isn't going to be sufficient for all of the local plan process, that when schemes do come available, that presumably local plan schemes would be sensible to follow, given it's been through the local plan process and had all of that scrutiny and due diligence and consultation. I just want to kind of get some assurance that when we're following these schemes, it's following something that's already been through quite a lot of public scrutiny, rather than perhaps the whim of one or two individuals. So I just want to kind of get some clarity on the selection of these schemes, because we're being asked tonight to follow one particular scheme. So I don't know whether officers are able or willing to comment on that, but I think it's really important given the nature of what we're being asked this evening. Thank you.
Are you specifically asking about the provenance of these schemes or the process for the future?
Well, I think schemes for future in particular, but with this one, you know, why this one over and above others? And I don't know whether this one is particularly part of the local plan process. It may already be part of that. And if it is, then that's helpful to know. But I just want that assurance of how the criteria and the thought process is, given that there's already approved walking and cycling routes for development as part of the 2017 local plan. I appreciate a new draft is coming out shortly, and indeed there's been all the other bits and pieces with the local plan. But I just want some assurance or understanding, because, you know, if more money became available in 6 months' time, do we then just say, well, I'd like to design a new scheme, for instance? Would you then say, actually, no, we've got all these other schemes available through the local plan process, which are clearly far more suitable and indeed scrutinised and all those things. So I just want some understanding and assurance about how the selection process has been to date and perhaps even moving forwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth, you happy to?
Yeah, we had a cycle strategy that was part of the transport strategy that was part of the current local plan. So that's the 2014 to 31 one. And that included the Riverside route, the Herne Bay route, and the Crab and Winkle route, which are the three active travel 4 schemes that we're promoting as part of this. And there were a lot of cycle schemes within that document, and I've just written a new LCWIP, local cycling walking implementation plan, which is part of the the future local plan, which is about to be consulted upon. So that will all go out for further consultation. There'll be a lot of schemes that were left over from the last one because we didn't do them all by a long chalk. And they'll be there. Some of them are part of developments and some of them are not associated with developments, so they need separate funding sources. And frankly, the criteria is what's relatively deliverable. So if we don't have the land assembled in any way at all, a scheme isn't really deliverable and it needs a lot of work doing to it to bring it forward. So the 3 schemes that we put forward, we felt were relatively deliverable, and very, very luckily, and I wasn't expecting it, all 3 were accepted for further design. So we've done design on all 3 schemes. The Crab and Winkle one has also got planning consent, and it's got planning consent from, I think it goes back as far as 2008. And then it's had amendments to it, and it's had its extensions, and it's had further amendments, but it's had that sort of basic planning consent in place for all of that time. The planning consent's been implemented by the construction of the... Can you put the drawing up, Andrea, please? Can you put my drawings up, please? The bit that's south of the railway line, we built 2 years ago, so we've implemented the planning consent. This length that we're looking at now, the potential for construction is north, that's it. The red line on the drawing here that's north of the railway line and north of Tenham Road, that will join onto the blue line, it'll go up, all the way up to the harbour. The reason for not just giving you a sort of update to note, but actually asking the question, would you give us consent to go ahead and construct if money becomes available, is that sometimes the windows of opportunity for bidding for funding for construction are really small, and what we didn't want is for the bidding window to be open and the JTB hasn't even seen the scheme. And it turns out that it looks as though it's the other way round. But when I wrote the report, we thought that we were still thinking that we might be in a scenario where bidding is available now and it closes in March, and then there wouldn't be a chance to come back to the JTB with the scheme. So it's as shovel ready as I can get it without actually going out to tender. We're ready to go out to tender, and then we would be ready to construct. There's been endless consultation with these residents. We would have to do it again because it's been so long that some of them would have changed. But it's a really, really good scheme that we have the potential to get the money from Active Travel whilst these funding pots are available, and I think it'll make a real difference to the town. The other two, do you want to talk about the other 2 schemes as well?
I think Jamie was going to come in with something.
The other two bid schemes I can show as well.
We can talk about those. I think if I'd like to keep specifically, because we wanted a decision on the Crab and Winkle one this evening. The other 2 schemes I think we can go through at some point as well. But Jamie, you had some more points on there.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight also, in addition to the local cycling and walking infrastructure or implementation plans that we're hoping all the boroughs and districts in Kent will adopt or come up with their own, KCC is also undertaking a Kent-wide cycling and infrastructure plan, which we've just finished consulting on. So we'll have, the idea of that is to have an overview strategy of schemes that we will prioritise. So when bids or funding streams come on board, we actually have a list of schemes that we know has had some input. And we also will look at the local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. And to date, though, we've worked from those more than the schemes that KCC would come up with. So KCC does work closely with the districts to try and find the schemes that we think have the support. But clearly we need to do a bit more work on the early stages to make sure that support is there. It is quite difficult if you don't have detailed designs. The the devil's in the detail always, and that's where it tends to fall apart. But just to give you the confidence, we are working with the districts and boroughs to try and get a list that we know is supported and has been through a number of consultations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jamie. I think I can, having had a look at this one, this might be the most scrutinised cycle path in history, although I suspect Longport's probably going to run it quite close at some point in the future. Councillor Turnbull.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm acknowledging, really. I mean, obviously, I really support this, and it'd be really exciting to get this off the ground. So it'd be really good if we can put this forward tonight. As just reiterating what other people have said, engagement is going to be crucial because obviously it is a long time since it went through before, and you know, there were some contentious issues at the time, and I know that a lot of work's been done to resolve those. So we really need to keep people on board, and we're going to have to make sure that it's preserving the biodiversity and the sort of wildlife corridor that it currently is, and make sure that that is built into the scheme. And I think those are going to be main concerns for local people. But yeah, it's a popular route. It's used by cyclists. It's used by pedestrians. It will really help it make sense. And then when we get the bridge, it'll be even better. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Councillor Carnac.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you tell us what the next stages of consultation are and engagement, please? Because I agree with my colleagues here. I think one of the issues is that, you know, I read this and I've been following the Crab and Winkle line for a number of years now and look at the plans and it all looks wonderful. But I think many of us probably thought the same about Longport when we looked at that years ago, and we also thought that about Herne Bay when we looked at it. But actually, there's been quite a big difference between what we expected to have and what we've actually seen on the ground, and some of the problems and the implementation issues that have come through with those. And we know there are nearly 400 people in the King's Hall in Herne Bay tonight who are absolutely adamant that they have never been consulted with and that they do not like what they're being presented with. And for me, this gives me huge concern because I'm not necessarily particularly a fan of active travel, because I agree with Mr. Thomas and what he said. It's a very good funding route for us, but I think it's very quick in the way that it implements projects that are in our local plan, but an old local plan. A lot of people have moved into this district since 2014, since 2017, and maybe not aware of a lot of this. And I again think we just need to be very careful with our engagement. So I'd like to know what the process is now and who we communicate with, because one issue in Herne Bay that's come to light is that people might have been consulted who lived very close to the roads that have been affected, but no one, for instance, where I live in Herne Bay was consulted with, and yet they may travel up and down through those roads every day and they feel that they've been left out. And we also know that a lot of local businesses weren't consulted with. So although on paper, and I know the whole reason for this, and I think it would be wonderful if it works, but there's a large part of me thinks I'm very concerned about this. And do people actually want it? Will they accept it, or will we be going back through what we've experienced with both Longport and now Herne Bay in the next few years? Thank you.
So just to clarify, do you have specific concerns about this Crab and Winkle scheme?
I just want to know what the consultation, what the next stages are for engagement and consultation on this, because as it says, you know, we have planning consent, and the next step of the project is to apply for funding, and if we get that, construction begins. That feels like, you know, how do people know about this? And I feel that we sit in here in isolation and we look at this and we're voting on this. But in 2 years' time, again, people, may all turn around and say, where on earth did that come from? I never asked for that. So I would just like to know how we're engaging and consulting with the residents of not only this local area, but also Whitstable. Thank you.
Go on, Jamie. Thank you.
The detailed design will need to be consulted on, whether there's an opportunity to change a detailed design prior to asking, going through a bid with Active Travel England, needs to be looked at. But certainly we would not go out straight to construction without the residents and businesses in that area being involved. And I think Ruth identified the the consent was given quite a while ago, so people have moved. So we do know that we've got to get to the local community. It is much harder to go to a wider audience, but that's something that we must have a look at to see whether we're going wide enough. So I guess I just need to give you the confidence that we are going to do further consultation, but I do think we need to look at ourselves and find out whether we go far enough. We often get to the immediate vicinity with the residents and businesses, but those passing through, it's a bit harder to get to those other than putting out signs to say we've got a consultation, and we do that. Any traffic order has a consultation process which is quite thorough and has been advertised, and we have a website. But again, do we get to everyone? We're probably not fully understanding whether we do that. So we do need to have a look. And the recent schemes that have been highlighted at this board, the Canterbury and the Herne Bay, probably suggest we've got a little bit more work to do on that front, early doors on a scheme.
Thank you very much. I think that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman.
Hi. Reading through this, I noticed that you had, for the Herne Bay Central Parade, about 12 months, you had construction and 12-month maintenance built into it. So I'm just wondering, with the Crab and Winkle Way, is there money that has been allocated for maintaining that? And would it only be money for the new bit of the Crab and Winkle Way, not the existing part of it? And then maybe not your thing, but how would you go about it? It's going to be difficult to report sometimes through lack of free words in un-internet places. Thanks.
Thank you. The 12 months maintenance is a maintenance period, so for the contractor. So once the work is finished, substantially finished, it then goes on to a maintenance period, and any defects within that maintenance period are at the contractor's costs if they are defects. Once the scheme, after that 12 months, is handed fully to KCC or the client, that's when it fits into the general revenue pot. And I suspect, as we all know, the revenue pots are struggling with maintenance, appropriate maintenance funding, and it's always going to be an issue. So that's where it fits into more of Hazel's domain on what can be maintained and what can't, and what funds are available. But it is tricky to find funds to maintain existing networks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments, questions, clarifications? I think I did have a seconder some hours ago. So, hello, Claire. So, just in summary, I think there's a lot of very useful debates around that, and I think with the active travel schemes and cycle, and I've spoken to quite a few residents groups and cycling groups and various other areas, and I'm keen, as Mr. Thomas said, that we do give these schemes a lot of scrutiny from start to finish. But the best way to ensure that happens is that these are generated by the communities in the areas that they're going to be placed. And I think we as representatives and councillors can play a huge part in that. First of all, in being the ear to the ground for where these things would be needed. And I think we don't actually have a really, really good idea of where things could come through, and that has to come from those people that are trying to actively get around the district and where they would like these schemes to go into. So I'm always asking people to feed in areas where they'd like to see them. And the second one, again, to Councillor Carnack's point, that we as councillors and community representatives have a huge amount to do in terms of speaking to people about these plans and making sure they are aware of what's going on. I know a lot of work's been done by successive councillors, and the Crab and Winkle extension crosses a few areas, and as these plans have certainly outlasted several representatives over the period of time they've been under consultation. But I know that the officers have been very good in updating people as and when they've become involved and speaking to the immediate residents. But we do need to make sure that we are out there getting the word out as well. So it is something to be watchful for. But with that in mind, I suggest we proceed to the vote. And if your memories aren't as good as mine, it is that the Joint Transportation Board recommends to the KCC Cabinet Member that a bid for funding be made to Active Travel England for the construction of the Crab and Winkle Extension Cycle Route Scheme If the bid is successful, construction should begin as soon as practicable thereafter, and a vote for is a vote yes is a vote for.
Okay, ready? Councillor Bland?
For.
Thank you. Mr Brady?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Carnack?
For.
Thank you. Mr Dance?
For.
Ms Dawkins?
For.
Councillor Moses?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ricketts?
I'll abstain again.
Okay. Mr Song?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stockley?
For, please.
Thank you. Mr Rob Thomas?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Turnbull?
For.
Lovely. So that is carried with 11 votes in favour and 1 abstaining.
Thank you very much. I keep forgetting it's me that has to move on to the next item of business. And that next item of business is item 9, the Highway Works Programme. And we have Hazel again to give us an update on where we are with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report is for note only, but I'm quite happy to take any questions in each appendix as I go through. So it's Appendix A at page 32, if anybody has any questions. Appendix B at page 34. Appendix C at page 36, 37, 38, 39. Okay.
A question, Mr Brady. Oh, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check that all the work orders for street lighting are on this? I believe there's a work order put in for a replacement street light in Upper Harwell Down, Little Meadow, but that's not on this list. I'm just wondering where there are gaps, what does that actually mean?
I don't know. I'd have to take that back to the street lighting team for you. What was the road again? Sorry.
Little Meadow in Upper Harwell Down.
Thank you. I'll come back to you on that one.
And if there's shielding to be put on street lighting, would that be in this list or is this just replacements?
It's not in the list, but we can ask for it.
Okay,
If, you can make a
that's
request for
on Roman Road,
Roman Road.
opposite number 7.
Opposite.
I don't have the what 3 words for you, but
Did you say Roman Road or Vernon Road?
Roman, Roman. Well, it's London Road and then it turns into Roman Road. It's really, but it's Prospect Cottages opposite there.
Thank you. Where was I? Page 38 and 39, 40 and 41 and 42. That's the conclusion for the street lighting. Appendix D, page 43. Appendix D2. And Appendix D3 and 4 on page 44. Appendix E is the developer-funded works on page 45. And bridge works on Appendix F, page 46. G, traffic schemes on page 47. And Appendix H is the Combined Members Grant Programme update. And that concludes our report.
Apologies, Mr Dance.
Sorry.
Yeah, purely on 48 member highway fund programmes. I've sort of got one that's just been finished and I've got another one I've just started. So this does not reflect anything I'm doing at the moment, even though it says includes schemes which are in design, at consultation stage, about to be programmed or recently completed on site, of which I have one. The speed indicator sign on Borstal Hill at Whitstable, all 10,000 quid's worth. Just thought I'd make the point, because if there's nothing against my name and no name, and these are not easy to get through, it takes a very long time and some major battles on the way. I'm sorry to say.
I'll ask for that to be updated for you. Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further comments on the general accounts? Mr. Sull.
Thank you, Chair. Just a general question. The report talks about the 5-year plan, and I wondered, when will we get to see the further plan? When will that be out for future years? And is there any chance of Valley Road in Barham being on that for resurfacing?
Most of the items in here are for last year. There should be a new updated plan coming forward in March. I will ask if we can get Valley Road on the resurfacing programme, but I'm sorry, you know what it's like, so I will ask for you.
Thank you. Any further? We note the report by general assent. I believe that's duly noted. Thank you. We move on to, in that case, monitoring of previous decisions. I don't think, do we have any updates on this? I don't think we have anything on previous decision.
I think the previous JTB was March, and all of the parking traffic orders were implemented as decided at the JTB. I think this is a problem with our current technical issues, that we just haven't got any monitoring as such. But there wasn't that much to add, was there? Because we did it all.
Yes, I think, but yeah, the last meeting was in March last year with the traffic orders, and if they were all done, then we need access to previous minutes to search them, and that currently they're unavailable. So yeah, I think it's all done.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just propose to put this on the next agenda. When we meet again, hopefully there will be access.
I think it is on the next agenda, but I think that's a good idea. From what I can recall of briefings before the systems went down, there weren't any significant issues with anything that needed to be raised. But I think, yeah, let's roll over the monitoring of the previous decisions to the next meeting, and we can monitor the previous decisions with the previous decisions as that happens. Lovely. Which case, I don't think we have anything that requires the exclusion of the press and the general public. I'm very disappointed to see the press aren't here this evening. And if there's no further business, then I will draw the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.
Next meeting.
Oh, the next meeting is on the 19th of March. Lovely.